In this follow-up or debrief to the first presentation on self-reference, we can look at the final path to production of the finished painting and some afterthoughts about how the function of memory could be deployed in advancing the saliency of imaging. Previously I was talking to this still life that has yet to be tidied up, so let's tighten it up a bit now. If we look at the fixation area, we can see that the detail of central vision, forming our explicit take on reality, really does fit into the palm of our hands. However, beyond this does not lie nothing. Beyond this lies 90% of visual field, and this is not a degraded form of central vision. It's highly sophisticated, forming the basis for implicit spatial awareness. We can consider the objects adjacent to fixation and see them in spatial context. Consider the candelabra. We can appreciate the candle holder closer to the plaster hands. We can then consider the stem and the base of the object, and then the distant candle holders. They are all appointed spatial values, increasing in size with respect to distance from fixation. We need to know very little in terms of detail to establish spatial proximity. From the other end of the scale, we can build from the all possibilities reference of the sky that has no surface, through to the grouped spatial references that make up the distant trees through the window, to the mullions on the window, to the arm of the angle poise, through to the edge of the depiction of the canvas. We can appreciate the spatial context. They all form part of the same system. That would be an operation if the fixation were made on any other point in the scene or any other point of any other scene. Because we generate it. We see the world in relation to ourselves. We now need to look closely at some detail that I passed over in the first presentation, as I simply needed more time to think about it. The ramifications could be significant for imaging systems. Consider the black crescent on the left. It's not in the earlier version of the painting. Let's go back to some slides from the former presentation, where we can see the armature of phenomenal field laid over the painting. The armature shows us the two-eye views together with the zones of central vision, where information is modulated to create objective form, the binocular stereo zone, where the visual system has two versions of the scene to play with, and then the alternation zones, where binocular rivalry plays out, with alternative views coming into consciousness. With an eye movement, without the head turning, we shift both central vision and the alternation zones to the right, meaning that on the far right we start to lose information of the scene, but pick up information relating to the nose and eyebrow. As the previous presentation identifies, this supplies us with orientation cues with respect to body alignment and the environment. But as we move our eyes to the right, while keeping our head facing directly ahead, so the extent of phenomenal field shifts to the right, so shifting visual awareness to the right. We can see in the painting where the full extent of the painting on the right extends off the canvas. We can also see that a crescent of black appears on the left. Why is this important? This is a record of what went before. We understand where we are now in terms of that movement. The black crescent, the absence, records that prior to the fixation made on the hands, the former fixation was in line with the head looking straight ahead. We understand that our eyes have moved while the head has remained static by the absence in that area, which is now outside of visual field, but obviously still in play within phenomenal field. We can also reference smaller areas, top and bottom, that also help to register the eye movement. So the question is then, how far does phenomenal field, fed by memory, extend? I think we should consider this in terms of body movements while static, eye, head and shoulders. Without moving our feet, we can see all around us. We see the world in terms of ourselves. I'm not a fan of vision science referring to vision in terms of maps and models of the environment in the brain somehow. I just don't think that is either accurate or helpful with respect to understanding mind and perception. But memory has to be playing a significant role in how we mesh multiple views together as we navigate our environment. We are not just aware of what we are looking at from one moment to another. What's occurring to us meshes into a larger understanding. Perhaps we can use the analogy of torchlight, highlighting areas in the dark where the dark isn't entirely unknown. To be truly immersed in an artificial environment, we would need aspects of that contribution from memory. So the question for imaging systems is this: why not start to supply some of the memory that informs the present by extending phenomenal field? We should be able to supply in ghosted form aspects of the last fixation in the black areas. The camera would truly appear to pan through phenomenal field. This technique would be interesting in painting, film and animation, but unnecessary in VR simulations operating a vision space system, as the individual would have the necessary degrees of freedom from which to build their own contributions from memory. In a way, all of this starts to appear in the last painting of the sailing boat. A better use for an IMAX screen? All of this identifies that pretty much everything defining our current information display systems is past paradigm, which is frankly an absurd situation.